Hi, and welcome to episode 24 of Friend in the Mirror. I'm author and speaker Don Shaw, and today's episode is called The Challenges of Adversity. And my guest today is Pauline Beal. And I'm really excited to have Pauline here with me today. Before I get started with Pauline, I did want to go over a couple of other things real quick. First of all, I want to announce that hooray, my book, Facial Shift, Adjusting to an Altered Appearance, is now available in print. Yay, see, it's a real book. Right now, it's only available through me, but that's going to change soon. It's also still available on Amazon, and it's also going to be available in other Kindle formats. So hopefully at some point you'll check that out. Secondly, I kind of wanted to explain a little bit about why it looks like I got punched in the eye. Well, the reality is I elected to have some surgery recently on March 1st. And what they did is they took a tendon out of my wrist, yay, so I have a scar there now too, and they put it up in my eye to kind of pull up the lower eyelid. In the meantime, and of course they had to attach it, so that's what that's for. That's an attachment point for the tendon. And they also put like a gold weight in my eyelid to help the eyelid come down and meet this eye, because it doesn't, this one points a lot, but that one doesn't do much of anything. So it's not done yet. People keep asking me, well, are you happy with the result? And right now, all I can really say is, I don't know yet, because obviously it still has some healing to do. So I just thought I would get that out of the way before we turned the show pretty much over to Pauline. Anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about Pauline because some of you might not know her. Pauline Beal is an up-and-coming film director and producer who has been affected by a facial difference caused by a cleft lip and cleft palate. Unsure of her condition and with no role models in her life, she made her own way in the world, learning to use her facial difference to her advantage and to appreciate the unique perspective it offered. A graduate of the film and television production program at Humber College in Ontario, her final year independent film project was to produce and direct an award-winning documentary called A New Reflection. Her film follows the life journey of a young artist named Katie I still can't do it. Hello. A young artist named Katie Atkinson, who was born with multiple facial differences. And we'll be talking about that film as well as a lot of other things. But for now, I want to say greetings, Pauline. Welcome to Friend in the Mirror. And why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and about your facial difference?
All right. Well, hi, Don. Thanks for having me on. It's actually a pleasure. Oh gosh, when anybody asks you to talk about yourself, you don't know really where to start. So I'll just want to start with I fell in love with filmmaking originally when I was a client of a program put on by two hospitals here in Toronto. And it was for people with facial differences to come together and do a little short film, not about our facial differences, but just to have fun with other people who have it. So as Don mentioned, I'm affected by a facial difference, and I have a cleft lip and cleft palate, and that means that the lip and the inside of my palate did not really form together properly, like everybody else's did. So basically, the way I describe it is, if you've seen what a Pizza Hut logo looks like, that's what my lip looks like, and the inside of my mouth. So that's to give you a little bit of a visual of how my lip looked. I can't speak today. My lip looked as a kid.
So what, we have a situation where neither one of us could talk today, and this is going to be a great webinar. Thank goodness they can at least see us.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background, your family, your support system.
Okay. I have a wonderful, wonderful family of my grandparents, my mom, and my dad, and the rest of my family. They were really great at like comforting me, bringing me to the hospital, making sure I was okay. But even though my mom told me when I was younger I had a facial difference, or like what I think in the medical world it's called facial disfigurement, and I never heard of that term really. So I didn't. I love my family and they are really awesome and they supported me really well. But I was told I had a facial difference. But I didn't know what that was when I first was a kid. It never really stuck with me. I just, going to school, I looked different. I knew I felt different. I felt different. And I know that people looked at me very differently, like they were afraid or stuff like that. But I didn't really have any role models in my family to look up to, because everyone in my family, this condition is genetic, but every generation has a cleft lip and palate, and it's usually the firstborn girl. I don't know how this happens, but it just kind of does. And everybody else has died a week or 24 hours after birth. So that was really interesting to find out that, no, I'm not the only one in my family to have it. It's just other people haven't been alive long enough to kind of shadow, like for me to shadow them and see how they lived through life. So it wasn't until I think it was 16 in high school, when I finally found a great organization called About Face that like helps people like me and a bunch of other people to reconnect with people with facial differences. And for me, I finally understood what my facial difference was called, what condition, like that I'm not alone, which is a very big one for me. But and that I could finally talk to someone about what I was going through and how I felt, and now I finally knew the right questions to ask doctors and the right questions to ask my parents. And during my high school years, I talked a lot to my parents, and we kind of I was finally able to understand why my life the way it is, the way it's set out, and why I had so many troubles as a kid understanding myself. Does that answer your question?
Well, so basically, while you were growing up,
Yeah.
you didn't even know that you had a cleft lip, cleft palate. You didn't have a name to go with it, or a condition, or anything like that.
Yeah, like my facial difference was actually a condition of, it's now called something else, but it's like Vader syndrome. So I just call it, to sum it up, I just call it a package of problems in your body. But I don't look at it as problems now, obviously. But back then, I'm like, oh, great, I have no idea what that means. But yeah, I didn't have a name that stuck with me, or people told me, and I'm like, I have no idea what that means. Like, I'm supposed to know exactly what I have. And like, actually, a funny story is our family history. We didn't have a lot of history of the documentation. I don't think, don't quote, I might be lying about this, but we didn't have enough documentation to say, this is what you have, this has been passed down from your family, and we only knew about the last 2 people who had it. So it's been quite a self-discovery journey for myself to go through this whole process of learning what I have and learning what it is and stuff like that. So.
Well, how old were you when you discovered About Face?
I think I was 16, because that's the first time I actually went to their camp. And a speech pathologist I was dealing with at Humber Kids Rehab in Toronto, they were like, you might like this camp, and they just handed me a flyer. They didn't really tell me much about it. She's like, you just really like it. And I'm like, okay. And to be honest with you, I was like, okay. I'm like, am I old enough, first of all? Because I'm like 16. Like, oh, it's kind of 18, I can go. Actually, I think that time it was like only teenagers. But yeah, so that's when I first started contacting with the camp, and there were about 8 of us. Back in the day, there was only about 8 campers, and I was one of the first. I think it's one of the first 3 years I attended. A fairly new program, but I came in right at the perfect time.
Yeah, that's great because I mean, me, I didn't have any of that. I basically had to grow up without any support. We didn't even have, I mean, social media has only been around for maybe the last decade. So we're talking about like, I had no support. I mean, I had my family also was great and very supportive. And I had a little better idea of what I had kind of a simplified version, but honestly, I didn't really totally understand my condition in all the details, all the correct details, until I did the research for my memoir a few years ago. And I actually sequestered my medical records and was able to read it for myself. Other than that, it was kind of stuff that my parents told me. But yeah, I mean, like you, I know what you mean. I didn't have anyone else to learn from. I pretty much had to make my own way. But that actually kind of brings me to the question of, you know, what allows some of us to be able to do this, to be able to make our own way where other people really struggle. I mean, how did you do it?
Honestly, sometimes you just gotta jump all in. And when I was growing up, I'm like, I don't know why I'm going to sick kids hospital every month or every couple of years to get bracelets done. I just thought my teeth were crooked for the longest time. I know because bracelets were normal. Bracelets were the norm for if you had a facial difference or not. And at that time, I didn't know I had a facial difference or what it was called. I just know that when I saw somebody else's mouth, it was round and mine had a crack. That's the best way to describe it. That's what I knew at the time. But I'm gonna go back to the other question for a second. But you mentioned something like we didn't know how we what we were going through until we did a lot more research. Well, I feel like everybody kind of doesn't understand their life completely because we're still like all learning when you're younger and stuff. But when you don't have a support system, sometimes it's like I was the quietest kid. I was one of the shyest people, and I did get bullied a lot in school. But I think one point when I got bullied in school, like elementary school, I'm like, I had enough. I had enough. I'm not taking this anymore because you feel like a resistance. Like you're just pushing, like you can't take any more negativity or you just don't want to struggle anymore. So I love Dave Ramsey. I follow him a lot on YouTube. But one of the quotes often stuck on his show is, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I got sick and tired of just feeling bad for myself, I'm not gonna lie, I was suicidal when I was a kid, but I just was too chicken to pull anything off or too scared to do it. So I don't recommend anyone killing themselves over anything. You can have a great life, but you have to push yourself through it. And yes, stuff's gonna hit the fan, and and life it's not always good. It's not even good for me every day, but I just smile and be like, you know what? Tomorrow's gonna be better, and tomorrow's going to be another opportunity where I can from things I failed from yesterday.
So basically, when you were in elementary school, you just kind of decided to take matters into your own hands and just move forward.
Yeah, at that time, I still didn't know what I had. I still didn't. I just knew different people did look at me like I was mentally challenged because I had a speech impairment, and I still do to this day. But mind you, I have surgery to improve and enhance my ability to speak, my ability to eat, and stuff like that. So that helped. But when you come down to it, is your practice on speech. Like when you learn a new language, I actually learned a lot from other people who speak other languages and how to pronounce their R's a certain way. Speech therapy, I love them to death. Scheduling is always weird, but I always thought that too many people say things too many different ways. Kind of rebellious against speech therapy for a while, but I did learn to speak, and I didn't hate the idea of speech therapy, but I knew that I'm like, well, what do you mean I have to say drama, like drama? Everybody just says drama, you know what I mean? So it got frustrating. That was one of my biggest struggles, learning how to speak when people are telling you to speak 3 different ways, and speech pathologists are coming in and out every 6 weeks or every couple of years. So that was the biggest challenge, is learning how to speak and communicate with other people, especially because I had to ask people questions about why my body was built a certain way, why my face was built a certain way, and I didn't have that knowledge, and I needed to communicate clearly to other people. So that was challenging, definitely challenging.
Yeah, you mentioned speech therapy, and I wanted to mention it. It's funny because I was kind of rebellious too. They would teach me how to make a certain sound, and it's like, well, that doesn't seem right. And it wasn't until I was in college, and I actually got a little, okay, I'm dating myself, but I got a little cassette recorder with a cassette tape, and I recorded myself. And I realized, oh, wow, maybe that sound doesn't come out right. And then I would try it the way that the speech therapist had taught me, like the my big one was S and R. And I tried it the way they taught me, and it's like, that actually kind of works. So I realized that, yeah, even though I was rebellious too, it was like, yeah, maybe some of those people really did know what they were doing.
Yeah, I don't hate them at all. Like, by all means, they're all great people, and they all have their interest. Problem with K, I have a problem with S's and T's and double S's all put together, and so it was kind of funny that way. But for me, I did drama in high school. All 4 years I went, and they would videotape, and I would be able to hear myself and hear my lines, and so that was interesting. And at the same time, my speech pathologist, which I still continued until I graduated high school, just was on and off for a couple of years, and I wanted to make sure that I was still on track with my speech a little bit more. And instead of going in like more than once a week, she got me to call her, like call her and leave a voicemail. So then she would mark down how I'm doing according to that. And when she played it back to me, I was able to tell where I wasn't working. Because we sound perfect in our head. We think our voice is completely awesome. Or maybe we don't like the sound of our voice, but we feel like we can speak okay and clearly and stuff. But when you speak to other people, it's a completely different perception of how you hear yourself. Of how they hear you.
And now, I mean, it's so much easier with digital. You just record it, and if you don't like it, you just delete it off of your little, drive. But back in the old days, we had to use tape.
I remember that I had a landline phone with calling other people with my message. You never heard it.
Hey, you need to learn to cut film. I mean, like physically cut film, okay? You're missing out, I tell you. Anyway, so let's keep going. Let's talk about, I know that you have some ideas on, advice for other people in terms of how they can improve self-esteem.
Yeah. Oh, where do I start? Well, one thing I always find is the more you focus on your imperfections, like your facial difference and disability, I have a lot of friends that have are in wheelchairs and they live their lives. I'm not focusing on it either. And we all know that having a facial difference or whatever you have is a very, very significant part of your life. But if you think that's the only thing that people look at, then and like judge you upon, then you're gonna put so much negative pressure on yourself. I had a friend who was very, very concerned about all the scars on his face, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He had a facial difference too. And I'm like, I can't see anything unless I'm putting a magnifying glass up to your face to look at your one little scar that you just pointed out to me, then I wouldn't be able to see it. So people are not judging us the way we think. They might be confused, right? Because when I was a kid, I had people were confused with the way I talked and the way I looked, and I'm like, well, what are you looking at? Like, just ask me a question and I'll do it. And another thing I like to tell people is, if you focus all your insanity on what other people think about you, even if you don't have a facial difference like we do, then that's all you are going to be. You become what you think about, and if you become more interested in what you love to do for a living, or what you're in school, or focus on your dreams and what you want to be, and if you don't use your facial difference as a barrier or anything else you have, then you'll be able to strive towards your goals and your dreams and everything you want to do in your life. But I will say it's not an easy road. Like, it takes time to accept yourself. It took, like, I was struggling to know what my facial difference was or why it was different for about 16 years. I had a lot of anger inside me because I didn't know what was going on. And I wasn't confident at all when I first started dating until someone said, "Oh, you're pretty cute." And I'm like, "What are you kidding? I have this facial difference. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What? You do?" And then that was kind of the first time. It's like, oh, okay. Like, some people, like, I know my facial difference may not be as obvious now, but it was when I was a kid. And I love my big brother. We went out to dinner. I don't actually remember this story because I was a baby. But my big brother, Jeff, he was like looking around at the other people looking at us in the restaurant and staring at me. And he's like, "What, aren't all babies born that way?" So if you just, I just love that because my brother didn't know that people didn't have facial differences when they're born. But it showed me that, like, people aren't always looking at you, and they're just curious. They're actually just curious. And usually when people understand what's going on, they're not afraid of it. And that's with everything in life. Like, I don't understand a lot of stuff in life. And you know what the best thing to do is ask questions. Ask why. Why do we pay taxes? Why do we go to school? Like, is there a way to do a dream job without going to school? Like, even stuff like that. Like, I see, like, the more you know and the more you ask. Some people say it's the more you learn, the less you know. But I feel like you learn more about yourself as well in the process of asking questions and stuff like that, because your brain knows more. You're learning, you're developing. Like, I don't think we ever stop learning unless you choose to. But you should be able to go keep learning and stuff like that. And I think that's one thing that builds my confidence. Keep learning and to not focus on too much when the world goes around me, and having a good support system. If you have, if your parents don't know what your facial difference is, or whatever, or a problem, if people don't understand, like your friends don't understand what you're going through, talk to someone else. Like, go to, I YouTube stuff a lot when I'm having problems with anything, or if I want to figure out how to, like, well, I like tiny house living and stuff like that. So if I figure, like, I want to do this, but my friends think I'm crazy. But I Google how to do this stuff, or how other people are dealing with it, and I YouTube it, and I learn, and I develop, and then I keep reading. That's what I do. I'm going off the rant. Got me gone.
Well, actually, there was a couple of things. First of all, Charlene actually typed in a question in our chat, which brings me.
Okay.
If you have a question, by all means, please type it into the chat, and we will get to it. I just wanted to tell a little story first, and then I'll get to Charlene's question, and I'll shoot that at Pauline. But you were talking about attitude and perception, about the idea that everybody's staring at you and noticing.
Yeah.
Well, I watched the movie Deadpool recently, and it's about a character who experiences a pretty dramatic physical change. And there's a scene in which he's walking down the street and everybody's staring at him. And I'm like getting mad. I'm sitting in the theater and I'm getting mad, and I'm practically jumping up and down in my seat. And I lean over to my husband and I'm like, people don't really do that. And then I had to realize, oh, wait a minute, calm down, because this movie is simply showing his perception that everybody on the street is staring at him. Because the reality is, people don't do that. I mean, they might glance and look away. I'm not going to deny that. But for the most part, most people, with some exceptions, of course, are not just going to rivet their gaze on you and stare.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I wanted to make that point. Perception, attitude and perception. It's like people, I don't even really notice anymore because it's not where my attention is. Anyway, so I want to read what Charlene says, and actually it's a good segue to get into something else I wanted to ask.
Okay.
But Charlene writes, It sounds like you would recommend that physicians, nurses, and parents improve communications and education about specific conditions that cause children to be described as different. As a child, do you think it would have helped if you'd met other children with the cleft lip and palate?
That's a good question. Honestly, like, it was really helpful when I was 16, and as a child, I think some of my friends in the facial community who had a great support system since they were 2 weeks old, they just knew everything. Like of course, our brains are still developing, so we still need that constant we need information coming back at us, and we need to learn about what we have. And I think that's more beneficial to be born into it and have a lot of communication throughout your life. For me, like, all I remember being a kid is I went to the doctor throughout my life, and they're like, "Oh, your jaw's like this," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Every kid goes through this, right? Cool." But I didn't know. But just teaching your kid carefully. I say carefully because you don't want to upset. You don't want to make it seem like they're abnormal or anything, and they're not. Everybody has a difference. It bothers me that people think that people are different, like different. You know what I mean? But teaching your kids that everybody has differences, and what theirs is, you can educate them, and then you can also teach them how to advocate for themselves. Like I was able to advocate myself in high and college because I knew how to advocate for myself when I was 16. So.
Okay, so what I think Charlene is kind of wondering is.
Oh, I think we froze. There you go.
Oh, am I good? Okay. So anyway, what I wanted to say is, I think one of the things that Charlene is wondering is, would it have helped you personally if you had known other kids with a difference and or had books, like access to children's books in which children or characters in the book had a cleft lip and palate? Or would it have helped you to have seen that other people have this issue, either both real and fictional characters?
Yeah. It would definitely help me. I did not understand why I was looked at as different or why I was going to the doctor. So that for me would have drastically changed my life. Mind you, I might not have been where I am today. I also like being right
a little bit,
but way longer.
Okay, so let's see. Pauline, you're kind of breaking up a little bit, so I think it's your connection. So I'm hoping that you will come back. Let's see. Nope. I think she got inadvertently booted off the program, so hopefully she will jump back on with us. So if you guys would just hang tight for a minute. Now I wish I'd saved that Deadpool story because I could have told that now. But anyway, let's see if she'll jump back on with us. All right, in the meantime, does anybody else have any questions? And, oh, I think she's trying to come back on. Yay. I see her little icon is appearing. And let's see, the other part of the movie Deadpool that drove me crazy was the scene. There was a scene in which his friend, sort of friend, probably the closest kid he had to a friend, because he was not that great of a guy. And the guy was talking about how, oh, you need to wear a mask, like all the time. And I found that disturbing. So. Okay, let's see. Does anybody else have any questions? And hopefully people are not going to drop off. I'm going to stall for a little longer. I'm going to be asking Pauline about, in regard to Charlene's question, I'm going to ask her about about starting up an about face, because I think that's an important aspect where she actually got to be around other people that looked different for what was probably the first time in her life. I'm also going to, hopefully we're going to get a chance to talk about.
Hi, sorry, I don't know what happened, and I was trying to get back.
Okay, No, it's all good. I just kind of stalled as best I could. And anyway, so one of the things I wanted to get to next, I'm not quite sure where you were at because you started to break up.
I
But
know, I apologize.
one of the things, well, this is the internet. Hello, welcome to technology. I just hope pretty much everybody stuck around with us. So thank you for that. And I wanted to ask about face. You
Okay.
mentioned like when you went to camp at the age of 16. Was that the first time that you'd been around other people who were different?
It just went, yes, that's the first time I specifically went to an event to meet other people. There's always been people at the orthodontic, and I just thought like, oh, cool, other people are getting the bracelets down here too. Like, it didn't register with me that that was a place where I could meet other people. So yeah, about face camp was the first time I actually met people, and then shortly after that, in the same couple of years, the same hospital that referred me to the camp also had like film events and stuff that go on that that's another avenue that I met people. And then we all like converted everybody to go to camp anyway because camp was awesome. But yeah, camp was the first time like about face or anything like about face came into my life. So
Yeah, it's actually been relatively recently for me that I've spent a significant amount of time around other people that have facial differences. So we have a couple of more questions. Charlene wanted to ask, one of the things that I'm a real big advocate is terminology. I
yeah,
mean, I know that my word is facial difference. I really have objections to the words deformity and disfigurement. If you can't use, I mean, I have used them for effect. I try to avoid using them. I also encourage that if you need a way to describe yourself, use the medical term rather than like, I have a facial deformity, I have a cleft lip, or I have facial paralysis in my case. And I know the question was probably directed at Pauline, so I'm going to let Pauline answer the question too.
awesome. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first, Don?
Well, I just did. I just told you my
Sure.
stance.
Sure. Anyway, I'm kind of like you a little bit, but I like to say the term facial difference first, and then if you don't understand it, it's kind of like I kind of go, oh, you know what a facial disfigurement is? Like a disability. It just means that my face functions in a different way. But we prefer the term facial difference because it doesn't make it sound as negative. Mind you, terminology will change from country to country, person to person, but that's what I know about 30 of my friends would rather have difference than disfigurement. And sometimes I use a facial disfigurement when describing myself to a brand new type of people, but I always put that line in and say I want a facial difference. Terminology used instead of facial disfigurement. Because I don't want to feel like I'm disadvantaged or make them feel like pity me. I just say I have something different with my face, and then if they're still confused, I'll be like, oh, you have brown eyes, I have blue eyes. That's something different about our face, right? But I have something that was not formed properly. That's another difference on my face. So I like to like make it sound more positive. Not that I'm denying not that I'm like saying I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm trying to like I don't want to have that negative connotation, so I'm not trying to put myself down, and I don't want it to make it okay to let other people put me down. I'm saying this is what we use because this is what I'm proud of having a facial difference, but disfigurement doesn't sound as appealing. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I know that I've dealt with people who they basically say, well, I feel disfigured. And that's when it comes into a state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if people who are comfortable in their own skin, they use whatever words they want. But I just caution people to be careful about your word choices because it's more about how you feel about that word. So
True. I
anyway,
also yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry. I also like to say facial difference because I think the more positive you use a term against yourself, describing yourself, it brings a more positive light to the community. So the more people say different, the less negative connotation. But if some people like want to rock their disfigurement or disability, like, yeah, I'm disabled, I don't care. I'm cool with that word, then go all for it. But the people who don't know how to approach people like with, they want to know about our facial difference, like don't know how to ask. Like if we the answer, people who answer say, oh, I have a facial difference, the more positivity and the more the news will spread, and the less negative competition we have, if that makes any sense.
So actually, I had one question I was meaning to ask you, and then Sean is going to segue us into talking about a new reflection because he asked a film-related question. But before we get there, I wanted to ask you, did you have surgeries to kind of help correct like the cleft and some of the other issues you had? Did you deal with that as a
Right now, I think I'm at 15 or 14. I lost count actually. It's around like 13 to 15 surgeries. After a while, you're like, you don't want to keep a tally how long. It just makes you feel bad. Oh yeah, surgery number 15. Let's go. Let's get another thing improved. But you don't want to think about it like that, so I stopped counting. But it's been around 15 that I can remember or have been told about. I've had 2 jaw surgeries, and I had a screw removal recently last January. So I came to work with the black guy. I totally forgot to tell my agentship that I was having surgery on Tuesday, and I'll still be in on Thursday. But everybody looked at me like I got punched in the face, and I'm like, what? Oh yeah, by the way, I had surgery. Don't mind me, guys. But yeah, surgery is a very not fun time. I mean, you get to miss school. So as a kid, I loved it because I struggled in school. But yeah, I had a lot of surgery to bring my palate more aligned. Now I can speak better because of it. I can actually start running. Running for me is really hard, like because of the breathing and that the cleft lip and palate impairs. Like it impairs like a little bit. So that's why a lot of people with cleft lip and palate and other facial differences have breathing impairment and speech impairment because the way the mouth forms. Now, yeah, so I've had so many surgeries. Do you want to know about any of them? You feel free to ask, but we'll be here all day.
Well, it's just something that didn't come up earlier. I kind of figured you had, but we should never assume. Anyway, so Sean brings up about you being a filmmaker. He basically is asking, how has it been for you to break out as a filmmaker with a facial difference? Has it been a supportive community for you?
All right, wow, that's a very deep, that's a very big question. For me, it wasn't like I wanted to be like, hey, I have a facial difference here in my film. I wanted to be, when I started as a filmmaker, I wanted to bring out difference without making it define the person or my subject. I made 2 films. One of them didn't make it very far at Humber College that I made, and it's about my friend Marshall who has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair. So I wanted him to, I wanted people to get to know who he was without knowing his facial difference first, because I feel like that with facial difference responsibility first. And for me, I didn't want my facial difference to be known first among my classmates and among the film community. I think you should always know a person for who they are, not what they look like, or not what their body can or cannot do. You should get to know the person, and that's a big thing for me. Because there's been so many times where I've been excluded for something because of the way I talked or the way I looked one day. But when I was doing any reflection, it was big. I just put out a casting notice because our casting system is a little bit different than the rest of my programs, because I had to find someone with the facial difference that was willing to talk on camera. I didn't want to do one about myself, only because I mean, I wanted to make a movie. I don't want to be starred in it, and I'm not a Michael Moore person yet. I don't think I will be. If you don't know Michael Moore, you should really Google him. His documentaries are fantastic. But I wanted to have someone that I knew well enough would be able to talk on camera, which like my friend Katie Atkinson, and I just put like a bunch of casting letters out, and a lot of people were like, had a really positive response and wanted to tell their story. I even got a girl from like, I think it was Texas, who wanted to be in her story, and I had to turn her down and say, I'm sorry, we can only film in Ontario, Canada, and within like general Toronto area because we had limited resources and we were students and we couldn't fly out anywhere with all our equipment. That would like blow half the budget, more than half the budget. So I had a really good positive response from not only one community but like a bunch of other people. I'm in about 15 official different groups. I don't always post in all of them, but I read stories and stuff, and I try to like chat with people when I can, and especially during the in the official difference group, I had like 30 people so happy and so proud that somebody was doing it from the community, and I was like, oh my god, I'm getting stressed. I'm getting really stressed because I don't want to let these people down. And I knew I had, going into the filmmaking process, I knew I had at least 300 people who wanted to see the film. I'm like, okay, wow, okay, I can't let them go. Like, I don't know how big About Face is alone, but like, I think there's like 30 or 40 people that I can name by name that wanted to see the film and wanted to be a part of it. And then like 300 people from like all over the world. I'm like, okay, like this was very overwhelming, and I did not want to let them down, so I tried to make it the best film I could for them and represent our side of the community, but making the not people without facial difference inside, or people that don't have what we have, understand what it's like to live with one. And I didn't want to bully anyone in my film, and I didn't want to on the facial difference side or on the audience side, but I just wanted to I didn't want to let my community down, and I wanted to bring out the best form of we are proud of who we are, and we do not let what we have define us, but come take a look at me and find out who I am. So that was a big thing. And the audience's reactions, I always have two. If me and like one other person have a facial difference from the audience, or know someone have a facial difference, they're always quiet. They're always quiet, and we'll laugh when our subject makes a joke like, "Oh, your mom's here?" No, it's more like, "Oh, your mom's here." Everybody laughs with that joke. But when Anna has this one line about Kate's dad being really proud of his daughter, the guy at the counter at a coffee shop they were at said, the kid at the counter said, "Look at the effing ugly kid at the door," and everybody in the audience that did not have like the I don't want to say normal, but people who didn't have a facial difference were like so pissed off at this one kid at the coffee shop. I swear, if he was there, I'm pretty sure they would all defend our subject. But when I have a bunch of people from the facial difference community watch it, they can feel they're kind of like reliving. I hope they're not reliving their pain, but I feel that they had one moment or another in their lives, like I did, when someone pointed that out to them. And I had to argue with my crew and saying, yes, people have came up to us more than like 3 times in my lifetime and saying, what is wrong with your face? And when people come up, like, and usually it's kids, but I had 1 or 2 adults go, what's wrong with your face? And I'm like, at this point in my life, I'm like, what's wrong with yours? Like, I don't see anything what's wrong with yours. Why are you putting out mine? If I have food on my face, by all means, tell me. Like, if I have a facial difference, I'm pretty sure I can go up there. You know what I mean?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't bring it full screen. I have to play it in the small window on YouTube. I've tried to figure out how to play it. I should be able to, but it's not working. So forgive the little icons down the side of the screen, but I think it'll be big enough. And so we'll give it a try and see if this is going to work. So bear with me for a minute. I guess if you could put up with Pauline being off the air for a few minutes, you can put up with a little bit of technical stuff with the YouTube video. All right, let's try this. Hopefully it will work.
Everybody has a different perception of beauty. What we see in magazines, that is this one whole group of beauty, but we kind of go along with it because it's what we know. I think beauty is from your inside. It's really about having a beautiful heart. If I can have a beautiful heart, then that's all somebody really needs.
Okay. Hopefully that worked. Did that work?
Yep.
I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I can't really see it. So anyway. So
I'm having a bad day.
okay,
James
yeah,
really
it's
helps
playing
me
again
try
for
to,
some
like,
reason. Hang on a
relax, and
second.
it's,
Let me
like,
just
very
get rid of it. Gone. Okay. So just in case you missed the audio on the first part, you got to hear it again. All right. So tell me, you've talked a little bit about the conception of it. Tell me about what you've been able to do. What have you been able to accomplish with this film? Like where have you shown it? And I guess it kind of won a few awards, didn't it?
Yeah, more than I was expecting. Not that like I have like not that I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna make not that I don't have a lot of confidence. It's just I was kind of like new into the filmmaking business, right? Like I volunteered with like the film program that I was involved with when I was like, younger, and I love that. But outside of that, I really had no filmmaking experience outside Humber College as well. So it won about I think 3 awards. One in California at the best shorts competition, one at the Canada shorts competition, and it's been in a lot of different festivals, and I got nominated. One of my favorite. I actually got to go to a festival. A lot of them are online now, which I don't understand the whole online festival thing yet. But the one that I went to was called Toronto Youth Short, and it's for filmmakers around in your high school days to into like your 30s who are making films. And I got nominated for cultural relevancy, and I was like, "What? That's awesome!" Like the fact that this person came to my Humber College meeting, the festival director was like, "Can you submit your film to our festival?" I'm like, "Is that unheard of?" Like I've never been asked to like submit to a festival by the festival director before. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'll submit it. I'm like, I didn't know what was going to happen. You never know with film these days. And it got nominated. It didn't win any awards at that festival, but like I felt so proud that I was doing in the community such a great thing, like sharing one person's story. It meant so much to the community and to me because I remember when I was making a film, I asked Susie Kitty's mom a question, and I was crying behind the camera because it was one of those questions where, and it really hit home. I'm like, how is it like living? How is it like living without knowing that you have a facial difference too? Like, how did you feel? Like, tell me about the time when you felt different. And I was crying behind my camera. I love my camera operator, Lona. She pressed record, and when she saw I was crying, she was like holding my hand, making sure I was okay. And then right after I cut, I left the room and cried for 15 minutes. It was a very emotional roller coaster ride for me. But it was one I wouldn't give up for the world. I really, really do like that. So when I got this award, when I got this nomination, I was so pleased that we even got there. And then when I got all the other awards from all these other places, I was like, I'm just so happy. Like, there's like no other way to describe it. You're like, it's not for real. It was really for real that this was happening. And the fact that I was not only making film just for myself, I was making it for a community that was backing me. I was like, this is going to be really big. I just had a feeling, and I didn't really know how to live up to that. But I was just happy and sharing. And the more exposure my festival got, the more our messages were spread. And that's why I love about documentary filmmaking. You can just share an important truth, an important story. And I think a lot of people came up to me and my documentary subject and like, oh my gosh, everyone wanted to meet my documentary subject. And they're like, oh my gosh, your story was so great. I think we're really turning the audience's head, turning their whole perspective on treating people with disabilities and differences around. I think, oh, just treat them like they're normal people, like because they are and stuff like that. And they have so much to give to the world. And after our first initial screening at Humber College, everybody's like, where's Katie? We want to meet her. I'm like, guys, she has high school. She's not high school student. She has to go to school tomorrow. She can't come to the after party. And she's not even legal to drink. So that was kind of funny. But I think we're... What?
Even in Canada, she's not legal to drink?
Well, I mean, in this province, you have to be 19, but like, so... Which is awesome, because when you turn 21 in Canada, you can go to the States and drink everywhere. But that's not the focus of the talk.
So, where can your movie be seen? Well, first of all, how long is it actually, and then where can it be seen?
It's 12.5 minutes with credit. Somewhere like I think it's more like 11. And right now we are working with Bell TV in Canada to get it shown on there. They're still like editing my film, and about 10 others into a really cool, unique program. So it was supposed to be up in January. I'm going to let you know. I'll email you the time links, Dawn, and you can share with your viewers. What I want to do is I want to make DVDs and sell T-shirts and stuff like that. So when you buy a DVD, you're not only getting a DVD, you'll be getting like T-shirts and stuff. So that's going to take a while. I'm hoping to have that within the next year. I want to get set up and stuff because right now I'm waiting for Bell TV to stop to like air and stuff like that, and I'm trying to get it into a few more channels and festivals. So in about a year, I'll be selling T-shirts and stuff probably.
Okay, so are your aspirations still in filmmaking? Is that where you see your life going ultimately?
Yeah, right now I definitely, and like for the rest of my life, I want to be filmmaking. Realistically, I've been trying to, I have a film job and I'm not really working that much right now because the film work kind of comes and goes sometimes. So right now I'm working on a personal goal. I'm working on saving money and paying down debt. That's what I'm doing. So I'm doing like a lot of personal care and just kind of I'm even working in a restaurant right now, but I'm not giving up on my dream. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes if you want to make your own film, you do have to get the crew together. You have to do a lot of planning. Sometimes you have to put in your own money. That's not always the case, but now that I have a contact with Bell, I could probably pitch another project and they'll probably pick it up and they'll be shown on Bell TV. Mind you, I kind of want to do projects outside of Bell TV as well because I want people in the States to see it. I want people across the world to see it. And I just want to get my stuff out there, especially documentaries, because it has a really important message. Yes, fiction is awesome. Like I'm writing a fiction piece right now. And it's I think it would be really, really cool for people to watch. But I think I'm more proud of my documentaries because they have more meaning to the community and a little bit more to the world and like how we change things. I look at fiction as entertainment and fiction as entertainment and non-fiction as entertainment and educational. And you're learning more about your world when you say documentary and stuff like that. So that's why I'm more proud to push the documentary stream. But I'm trying to go both, so maybe I can expand my film career and stuff like that. So.
Well, and I'm sure you've thought about crowdfunding.
Yes, that's actually one thing I'm going to do when I make another film. It's just crowdfunding. I can make a documentary on like practically nothing. I had a bigger budget than I needed. But because I had a bigger budget for New Reflection, I was able to market to a lot more festivals and do a lot more pickup shoots, which in documentaries you always have pickup shoots because we looked at all our footage and we're like, we don't have an ending. And that the dancing scene that you see in the trailer is our ending, and I don't want to give it too much away, but it's just so poetic, and I wanted to make this more like an artsy, poetic film, and while still having that real life documentary side to it, because I want the audience to be interested, and I just didn't want it to be like, I never want to make anybody pity anyone in my film, so I want people to be entertained. And one thing I completely took an experience from my life and my friend's life, where they were being stared at, and I turned that into a reenactment. And I just said, okay, we're going to have a couple of people coming right towards where we're going to have a documentary subject lock. And I had this one character who gave the camera one look, and it just made the whole. I watched people when I showed the film. The other like, why are they looking at me face, or they're like, I feel uncomfortable type of face. So I think I'm putting the audience where right in our shoes during that scene, and I love that. I did put a little bit of, I didn't make it up a little bit, but it's a real life event that happens to all of us, happens to my documentary subject all the time, where it's your perception of how people are seeing you and how people make you feel when they're looking at you because you're visually different. And so that was entertaining to a lot of people.
So I'm going to jump in here. We're getting close to having to wrap this up.
Oh no.
And with a couple of things. First of all, do you have? Is there other hello? Yes, I can speak. Advocacy work. Is there other advocacy work that you're doing, or are you pretty much working trying to do that through films?
I work in personal care right now on the side, and I always, when I'm with one client, we always like, I help him with this presentation. Like, I don't really do much, I just type it for him. But if he says, hey, I want to run this idea by you, I'm like, that's freaking fantastic. So like, he has his name is Marshall, and if you want to watch one of his talks, Marshall talks. Yeah, he does motivational talk. He doesn't verbally speak, but he speaks other ways. So I love it when I love helping him, and like, he's like, oh, can you go take a picture? I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, you can walk. I can't get up to that place because I'm not accessible. Can you take a picture of that? Yeah, sure, no problem. And whenever About Face has a great campaign going on, I always share it, and I'd be like, you have to watch this. You have to watch this video. For all of my friends who don't know what this is, you have to watch this video. So I'm very big in supporting the community and stuff. And like I said, even just going on Facebook and going on to one of those groups and talking to one person makes a difference. And I even added this girl I was talking to on Facebook, and I'm like, I'm so sorry that you're in this situation, but yeah, call me anytime. Call me anytime.
So do you have any specific projects that you're in mind that you want to do next?
Right now, not really. I want to do a fiction piece and get that filming, but in terms of documentary, I probably want to do, oh wait, the travel documentary. I want to travel across Canada and maybe the States.
Oh, that's rough. That would be
walking, mind you. People think I'm nuts, so I don't care. Like, I'm gonna go do it anyway. Just need to find a crazy person to film me.
Okay, so the last question I have for you today, and I know you probably answered it already, but I'm just going to ask you to reiterate. Well, first of all, I do want to, yeah, all right. So I was just going to put a shout out to say that if anybody has any more questions, now is your chance. I mean, we're not confined by the hour, but I really try to keep these close to an hour. So we can definitely go a couple of more minutes. Charlene wants to know how to contact you, but I'll tell you what, we'll use that as part of a wrap. But before we get there, I wanted to ask you, if you had one piece of advice to somebody who maybe doesn't feel as confident about themselves as we do, what would you say to them, or what activity or what action item could you give them to help them improve their life going forward?
Look at your dreams and simply follow them, and simply ask questions to understand the world around you.
Well, that was short and simple.
And one thing I always like to say to people, don't let your facial difference or disability disable you. Let it enable you to other avenues that other people don't have. Because really, I got to meet my professor and work with my film professor at Humber before I was taught by him, and he is one of my greatest film role models. So don't let your facial difference or disability disable you. Let it enable you, but you have to enable your opportunities. You have to do it.
Okay, so Pauline, what is the single best way to contact you? If someone wanted to continue this conversation, what is the best way?
Honestly, I'm going to say find me on Facebook.
And do you happen to know offhand what your Facebook is?
Yeah, my Facebook is just Pauline Beal, Beal.
There's only one of you, because I know with me, I'm like Don Shaw 37 or something like that. My personal.
You're popular. Yeah, I'm probably like one or three, but I'm the one in Canada. And you can find me on Twitter, Pauline_Beal. I use my first and last name all the time, so I'm easier to find for people. But yeah, tweet me something or message me on Facebook. I won't add people right away, but I will talk to them right away for sure. I talk to people in like Ghana and India all the time from my facial difference groups and other people. And I'm like, oh, hey, how do I know you? And then we just start talking. So yeah, I'm not one of those people with a lot of friends, but that's because I like talking to people and reaching out. So.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, if you're really stuck, you can always contact me. My website is under my name here, facinguptoit.com, Dawn at facinguptoit.com, and I can definitely put you in touch. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. Find us on Facebook, Twitter. I'm everywhere. You put in Facing Up to It, you're going to find me, and I can definitely get you in touch with Pauline. So that's easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to say thank you very much, Pauline, for being on my show with me. I just have such a delightful time talking to. I don't think I've had a bad guest yet. Somebody who hasn't been interesting and fun and have good stories. And so I'm just very grateful, and I'm glad to have Pauline. I happen to come out of a production background myself. So I'm really hoping that Pauline is successful in her ambitions to continue to make films. So it's exciting to be able to have her on here and talk about not just her difference, but her filmmaking and her future. So I want to invite everyone to come to my next webinar. It will be on April. See, I'm still having that talking thing going on. April 20th. It's a Wednesday, and my guest is Dave Furukawa, and he's also known as Dave the Blind Guy. And I tell you, you might wonder, what does someone who is blind have to say about appearances? Well, I can tell you, because I know Dave personally, he has a lot to say. So I'm looking forward to having Dave on my show. And he travels. He travels all over the place. He used to travel a lot. And so I'm excited to have him on and talk about about how he sees the world. Now, before I close up, I just want to remind everybody, it's really important to be kind to other people. We talked about that quite a bit, but don't forget to be kind to yourself. Thank you very much, and I hope that you'll join me in future shows.
We are love, we are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other.